Hello, everyone. Welcome to our next live session on sustainable business models for IDS-based products. My name is Darja Kramer. I'm from the IDSA head office. I'm part of the team for strategy and adoption, and I will welcome you today before we get into the presentations of Karsten Schweichhart from Deutsche Telekom and Mike Roode from TNO presenting their very exciting business models. So why are we here today? Most of you know about the topic of data sharing, and data is the new oil. These statements have been around for a while, and people would like to share, but nobody really knows how to do it. So IDS is here to create the standard, and but we need people, and we need and we have these people here with us today to guarantee the trust that is needed to keep the data sovereign and to keep IDS alive, to make it go live, to go beyond research projects, and to get into actual marketable products. How are we going to do this? Most of you have seen this graphic. I will show it just to onboard everyone who hasn't seen it before. This is our IDS ecosystem. Within it, you can see the circle of trusted IDS, where all the components that are needed for sovereign data exchange are depicted. Everything that is pink is mandatory. So we need certification, we need certificate authorities, we need information about our participants and dynamic attribution systems, and we need connectors. Because not every company will need to implement IDS into their whole infrastructure, but they can only plug and play, as Karsten said before. So IDS is looking for a plug and play solution with these connectors, but for that we need the trusted IDS circle in the middle. And I'm happy to say that the use cases that we'll present today are a big part of this and have reached a very mature level to show you how this can actually look like in a real industry scenario. So this is the how. And now let's talk about what we do. We have formed the Launching Coalition to make what I said before come true. So IDS Go Live is not a hashtag only, but only what we believe in. We think that by the end of this year, we will have real live products on the market. We have more than 30 companies who are highly motivated to make this happen. We have more than 20 use cases who are together developing one standard. So as you can see, we have 3 working streams, and I will start at the bottom with the rulebook, where all the standards, operational and legal agreements are made, where the solutions build upon. So the Plug Fest that has happened in the last days, the integration camp that SQS is facilitating, and the third one, the creating business cases working stream, which actually might be the hardest one, because you are the first ones to actually come up with the business cases surrounding this. So I'm very happy that we will get some input here, because each of you has the responsibility to present their business cases within their companies.
Models.
No, yeah, you have to present your business cases within your companies, but your
right.
is, of course, the wider view on it. So
Okay.
that's why we today will talk about the business model. So to give everyone some input for their own business cases, because these are not the ones that you have to present to the outside world, but to the inside world. But the business model will help you get there. And it's great that you can get some feedback, inputs, and inspiration from Karsten and Mike today. So this is the agenda that I prepared for today. And I think most people have arrived by now, which is fine. So right after I stop speaking, we will go over to the Data Intelligence Hub, where Karsten Schweichhart from Deutsche Telekom will present their business model based on data exchange in the marketplace. And then Mike de Roode from TNO will continue with a smart connected supplier network use case that they have been working on for quite a while, both of which have reached a great level of maturity. And afterwards, we will get into the discussion of matchmaking opportunities between our use cases, because we firmly believe that the whole launching coalition and the whole of our use cases are bigger than just the sum of each use case. So I'm very excited for that, and I hope you are too. And without further ado, I will give over to Karsten.
Okay, thanks, Darja. One additional word from me before, yes, products using the value proposition of IDS, the data sovereignty value proposition, are occurring. So we build on this. I will show you it in some minutes. Bad news is, let me call it, what we have are product islands. So the products are itself more being an own ecosystem on an own, kind of island. And the idea of this workshop and maybe further workshops is to get in contact to very best friends or IDS friends and friendly other products to become interoperable, or maybe to connect to each other. So this is the idea. Okay, so I'll give you a hint to change the slide. So it's about, now let's start. It's about Telekom Data Intelligence Hub. It's a product name, and there's it's a business model around this product. We are developing it for I think 2 years now, and 1.5 years we started on market with a minimal viable product with it. This is a use case. One of its products is a data marketplace, and this is named as a use case in the IDS launching coalition community. So what is the product about? Next slide, please. The product is a kind of product portfolio of 3 key offerings. It's a data catalog or data marketplace, a data workspace, and a data analytics space. The data marketplace is for data providers and data consumers to share and exchange data. The data working space is a cloud area furnished with AI tools to process the data and work on IE algorithms to produce algorithms on it. And the analytics exchange place is to share these analytics insights as well. For all these modules or this complete portfolio based on the value propositions of IDS, so trust, data sovereignty, and the neutrality of cross-industry given by the cross-industry approach of IDS, and the position of Deutsche Telekom as a telecommunications operator. So this is a short overview. So let me, next slide, please. So what I said, the trusted environment was a key idea to bring such a data product portfolio, data handling product portfolio into the market. This was quite new for Telekom and quite new for us. This quite new is a good word, but it means, as one of our experiences, the often mentioned business case is hard to calculate, because you have to use because everything is new. Even the market you are going into, you have to use tons of assumptions and make your controller believe into these assumptions. This was a hard way for us from the business case perspective. But the trust basic assumption, if you care on data, trust is basic. So this is our how to say, motivation and our reason why we are a member and driver in the IDS community. Next slide, please. So our approach is industry across industry and across markets valuable. So it's not only for one industry. And what the examples today, I want to go deeper in it, is on the bottom, on the top right side, the manufacturing marketplace. But we are active in other, as you see, in other branches and industry segments and market segments as well. So if one of the auditors is active in another segment, then the today mentioned deep dive manufacturing segment, it's good to talk to us as well. Next slide, please. So I'll give you one example for each relevant product portfolio element. And the first one I want to say something about is a data broker. We implemented a data broker, which is able to get some data on the one hand side and from a provider side, and to give it to a consumer side. The example here is about the Umati demonstrator. This is for the German Machine Building Association, VDMA. The demonstrator, they developed the script language Umati across every machine building company. So a common language for machines as you want. On the left-hand side, so we connected via the OPC API, applying the Umati interface. We connected all these machines in this demonstrator on the IMO fair first in the last year, and the broker brokered the data and leads the data to destination dashboards who were allowed to get this data. This was the broker functionality, and this part of this module, if you want, of Data Intelligence Hub is the broker building piece. And what you can see here is it can be, from a business model point of view, be a building block into an overall solution. So if a solution needs a data broker inside, this is a possibility to use a broker, the IDSA-based broker of the Telekom Data Intelligence Hub. This is a first product piece, the broker example. Next slide, please. Second piece is the important one, is the DIH product, the connector. The connector is a dedicated product from us, and it can be used like the definition of the IDSA connector to connect, to organize a data exchange between data providers and data consumers in a direct way. They buy or license the connector from us, apply this in their environment, and organize their data transfer. This is governed by within the cloud from the Data Intelligence Hub, but the Data Intelligence Hub in the real data transfer is not involved so far. It's only the governance, environment, infrastructure for it. So far, the connector implements the current available version of the reference architecture of IDS, and maybe a little bit more. What is not yet defined, we need to apply this to a practical environment. So the connector is a second product piece. Next one. I will skip the next ones maybe. So we have the workspace, and within the workspace, you see here a lot of partners. This, it's important to explain the business model. Here we have a lot of partners within this workspaces who apply their the applications and tools there to furnish the workspace, which will be available for our customers in the DIH environment. So the workspaces is a partner business model. I will summarize it. That's here. Next slide, please. We have a consulting product coming along with all these products because we learned quickly that our customers or potential customers have an, how to say, very different maturity in handling and applying their data and handling them as economic goods. And because of this different maturity, we have different stages for support from a consulting perspective. So we defined a set of consulting packages to help the customers handling their data in a kind of make them ready for data ecosystem, applying a connector or applying a broker or applying the marketplace, you know. For example, offering to offer data on a data marketplace, you need to care on quality, you need to care on description, you have to commercialize the data, and we have some customers who need our support or who get our support on this. Next slide, please. If you have a product, you need a price list. So we have a price list on these products and some add-ons on these products. You see that we have a freemium and a premium price model. So it's you can use the marketplace and a little workspace for free. This is a freemium offer, and then you can get we have B2B markets, then you can get some premium offers here with for the time being. It's a kind of flat rate. It's a kind of flat rates you see here, that from nearly 2,000 euro or nearly 5,000 euro, you can get the full approach to per month. You can get the full approach to the DIH environment. The connector has a different price model on the right-hand side. It's about, what were we here, 500 euro for a managed connector for the time being. And here's the discussion. Is in the future an open source connector? Can you think about something like this or not? So the business models, this is our current approach, but our business models around this are under discussion continuously, and to find out what is good for the market. Okay, price list next, please. What kind of IDSA services we needed to build on or to build in all this. You see on the left-hand side the reference architecture you might know very well of the IDSA. And the middle part, we concentrated on the middle part and implemented on the right-hand side all these pieces for our purpose. We implemented even the pieces which should be common available or shared, because on the time being they are not available. So we implement our own broker, our own identity management with key cloak standard, for example, and all other roles we need to make this happen. This is built in a way that we are close to the architecture and for the future to collaborate or to be ready to collaborate or to exchange some functions with than maybe functions which will be available as federated services. So in summary of it, last slide, please. So in summary of it, we have a business model with the value propositions on the in the column of value proposition. You see all the products which and the product modules are introduced, and our common mission and idea on it. On the key resources components we were using, the connector, the broker, and some DAPS functions. What we need, we summarized in the key resources here. We focus from a customer perspective. On the right-hand side, we have several focuses. One is manufacturing industry, for example, the Umati case I showed you. We have other markets in focus, but we are cross-market ready overall. So this is customer view, the value proposition, the key resources we have, and the partners. The partners on the one hand side are mainly in the workspace environment. We are partnering with tools and technology offering, but as well partners in the data provider side, where we ask for data owners partner with us, use us as a data offering channel for you. We have some business knowledge partners like Siemens, for example, with Siemens MindSphere, especially in the industrial way, to bring to connect to other ecosystems. And partners we are looking for is, of course, in the launching coalition here. So this is the list here on the left-hand side, the companies of the launching coalition. This is the result. Darja and me, we both constructed and find out where are possible match points from this approach to other use cases in the launching coalition. Is it by value proposition, or maybe by customers, or maybe by common used key resources? Okay, this is a quick story. Okay, 15 minutes plus 5 minutes technology problems was from Karsten. This is an overview of Data Intelligence Hub and its product modules and business model summary on it. Last slide with picture with me, and then questions are welcome.
Okay, so you can write your questions into the chat or into the questions tool. If there's nothing urgent, we could just go on with Mike. Christian Miete, you raised your hand. Would you like to say something?
Sorry. Christian Miete here from DMG Mori Istos. I have a question. Do you have developed all these kind of solutions based on a part of open source components and some components on a commercial way, or what is a part of open source?
The open source part is quite big. You find things like Kafka here inside and others. The commercial, I think the most commercial one is Microsoft Azure in it. So it's more or less developed platform independent, but at the moment we are running on Microsoft Azure. But we are ready to migrate to Amazon if you want, or to Deutsche Telekom Cloud if it's necessary. But
okay.
Like Siemens MindSphere. But the development is mostly open source based.
It's open source based, but the 2 years development you mentioned before, do you create additional open source components So like
Not yet.
freeware or?
Yeah, not yet, but we are discussing what we are at the moment under discussion. What part of it's maybe in alignment with the strategy of IDS. What part of this development here, for example, the connector or others, maybe the broker is ready to be or could be offered as an open source component.
Yes, this is really interesting point, because based on the strategy, you have the possibility to create a standard on the one hand, and then on the other hand, added value additional.
Yes, absolutely.
Great. Thank you.
This is a discussion we have, and if you have some impulses for us, my colleagues in Deutsche Telekom, okay, they are saying, okay, open source is fine, and making a business model based on managed open source components, like you know it from Linux or others, is a business model you can how to say, would be attractive. But does the market with handling trusted data, does they want it? Once they, are you losing trust by becoming openness? This is so. If you have, how to say, requirements, expectations from as a people from the addressed market, happy to share.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Hey,
Let's
thanks.
continue discussion later on and give the stage over to Mike so that he also has enough time to present their use case, which is also great, and to give us some more discussions, time for discussions by the end.
Yeah, thank you all. I'm Mike Roode. I'm a consultant for smart industry at TNO. And I'm responsible for the technology part of the technology behind the Smart Grid Supplier Network Digital Innovation Hub. And today we will quickly go through what SCSN is. We will not spend too much time on that, because the main interest for today is, of course, a four-corner model. That's the model we based our network on. And on top of that, the business model which supports the Digital Innovation Hub. So for people who are not familiar with SCSN, we started in the Netherlands as an industry DHY, and the main thing the industry in the Netherlands is developing is high-tech machinery like ASML or Philips MRI scanners, which are very complex machines developed in a very low volume. So low volume, then I mean 1 to maybe 10 machines of the same kind, but they are still quite complex. So in order to make them, for each new machine, you need to create a complete new supply chain, maybe hundreds of suppliers, and they each need to set up their systems and the communication just for creating 1 or 2 machines. So this is quite complex. And for that, we started this innovation activity, and our main interest was aligning the IT systems of all those different suppliers, so that everyone can efficiently collaborate with each other. That was our main problem. And of course, we are now extending to not only the high-tech industry, but also to other branches which are surrounding this sector. So, as you can see now, I drew a very simplified supply chain, starting with an OEMer who develops this complex product, and he cannot manufacture each item on his own. So he outsources various parts to suppliers, but even such a first-tier supplier might not even be able to make this part, because it's still so complex that he outsources it again to a bunch of suppliers who do that another time, and maybe even a third time. So yeah, as you can imagine, you get quite a complex supply chain, a very deep supply chain, and all those companies need to work together if, for example, the OEMer has a different requirement all of a sudden, or wants to have the item a bit earlier or later, then all those companies should work together to make that happen. So in this supply chain, every company might be very different. So in general, at the beginning and at the end of the supply chain, you have very large companies. At the beginning, you have companies like ASML, and at the end, you have companies like ArcelorMittal or Tata Steel. Those are very large companies which have extensive IT departments. So in general, they are able to make sure that information flow is handled correctly. But especially in the middle of the supply chain, you get quite some SMEs, which might have a more simple ERP system, or maybe don't have any system. And it's very hard to close the communication flow if in the middle it breaks. And because of that, we see that a lot of still nowadays day-to-day activities are manually inputting order data, all kinds of other financial data, technical product data. It's manually typed over from one system to another system, or it's transferred via phone or email. So a lot of administrative burden, and as you can imagine, that creates a lot of administrative burden, which causes a low efficiency. Because of manual work, it's very error prone, and it's not the way we want to work together, of course. So we have to find a way that everyone in this supply chain can efficiently share data. And the challenge over here is that on one hand we have very large companies, on the other hand we have very small companies, and they each operate in a different part of the supply chain. So if we want to solve this problem of exchanging these types of information, then we need to have a solution which fits all. So not only the beginning and the end, but we need a solution for the complete supply chain. It's also important that companies only have to connect once, because there are a lot of EDI approaches which have been around already for decades, but they require manual setup of connections each time we want to communicate with a new party, and that's not scalable. We want to have a solution where you only have to connect once and then can communicate to the complete supply chain. And at the end, it should be a solution which is not only driven by either IT companies or manufacturing companies. It should be a solution for everyone. And very important for that is that each company can decide for themselves which data they can share with whom. And of course, this is where IDS will kick in. So what do we have then? We will not go into detail today, but there are two main parts. One is a common language, which describes all the information we just showed you in this picture, which mainly focuses on purchase and pay information, but also contains a lot of technical information, so it's quite broad. So we created one common language based on a large set of existing industry standards. That's one thing. The second thing is we need to have technical agreements between all those parties of how we are going to share this information with each other in a structured way, which is very secure. And this is where IDS plays a large role within the SCSN initiative. So it's not only a communication protocol, it's also the way of transferring this data. And how does this look then? So we have this language, we will not go into detail, but I want to just mention this is an open source language. You can see that this link, and you can play around with it if you want to. And the other thing is our community, our infrastructure, and that's based on a four-column model. And this four-column model means that we have a set of service providers. And those service providers are experts in digital communication and integration. Mainly, they come from ERP vendors or integrators parties. and those service providers, they create connections with an own portfolio of ERP systems or other IT systems. So each service provider has a set of systems they support. They create off-the-shelf connections with them, which they can just plug in and if a customer wants to. And all these connections are then mapped to IDS, to our SCSN IDS network in the middle. And this network in the middle will make sure that each service provider is interconnected. So if there's a manufacturing company, can choose a service provider of choice. Maybe there is a service provider which already supports its system, or it can just look what service provider fits the best. Can set up one connection with the service provider, and the IDS SCSN network will make sure that the information is routed in a trusted way to the other party. And it doesn't matter if the party is already connected with the same service provider or with another service provider. So that's the main thing about the four-corner model. And let me now go to the different stakeholders we have. So, of course, we have the service providers and the manufacturing companies. And the service providers can each create an own business model on top of this network we have. They can also, as mentioned before, some of them are coming from ERP vendors, so they already have a customer portfolio. They can connect them to this SCSN network, and then all those customers have a very broad exposure to all kinds of already connected either suppliers or customers. For the manufacturing company, the main added value for them is they can choose the service provider and only need a single connection, which is really comparable to a telecom scenario. So you might have Deutsche Telekom, I might have a different service provider, and there's a network in between which makes sure that all this information is securely transferred. So that's the same approach we take in this SCSN network. For the manufacturing companies, it's mainly about reduction in costs and also increase in overall production, because creating custom connections takes a lot of time, costs a lot of money, and now with SCSN you only need a single connection. In the middle we have a foundation, the SCSN Foundation, and this foundation is in charge of managing and improving the standard and safeguarding all the agreements and promoting the standard, etc. And this foundation is also in charge of hosting at the moment all the IDS components. So for our network, we created a broker, one central broker. We have a clearinghouse, certification authority, etc. Those are all central components hosted by this foundation, and we created a special hybrid connector for a service provider, and they can set it up to connect all the connected manufacturing companies. So that's our SCSN of our IDS relation. And lastly, our main important stakeholder are sector organizations, which tend to represent their members in the foundation by sharing their domain knowledge and making sure the standard will also be relevant for their members. And the other way around, they will also actively promote SCSN to their members. So these are our four main stakeholders. And for this foundation, I just want to mention that it's a not-for-profit organization. And an interesting thing is that it's governed by a group of elected companies. And this is a combination of service providers, manufacturing companies, and those sector organizations. So each of the main stakeholders are represented in this foundation. And because, of course, this foundation also needs some funding, our main business model is that the service providers will have to pay a monthly fee based on the amount of connected manufacturing companies they have. And they can build a complete business model on top of this, so they can charge all kinds of different business models. So we have service providers which have a flat fee per month or per year. We have service providers which have a billing per message sent. It's all possible. But in the end, each service provider pays a small monthly fee per connected manufacturing company. And because we are a not-for-profit organization, this monthly fee will decrease when the amount of manufacturing companies which are connected increase. So in the end, we will have a very low, almost insignificant fee for the service providers to run this foundation, to improve the CSN even more. And the last years, we also did some research. Our colleagues at TNO, they did a complete simulation study of those main stakeholders, and their main goal was to analyze what was the added value for each of those stakeholders compared to a standard EDI scenario. And their main conclusions are, and this will be published, I think, in the upcoming weeks, but for now I can share the main conclusions. And they are that such a four-corner model based on IDS and SCSN, they can realize the benefits of the digitalization much faster, meaning that it's much easier to connect a large amount of companies in an early stage. Because in a standard EDI scenario, this will take a lot of time each time you want to create a new connection. And with this network, it's much easier. And the simulation studies concluded that it's a very significant number of increased usage compared to the traditional approach, so 86%. And for the manufacturing companies, the main added value is that they have a much wider range, because in previous scenarios they have to set up the manual connections every time they want to connect with a new company, and now they are exposed to a complete community of companies. So it's a win-win, we say. As just explained, it's a win for the manufacturing companies because of the visibility, a win for the service providers because it's easier to connect large numbers of customers early in time, and for the sector organizations, it's similar to the manufacturing companies. Because of those benefits, their members become more competitive. So the closing of the presentation is that I just want to show you this. This is the current status of our network. We have about 10 of those service providers, which are mainly active in the Netherlands still, but we're actively searching ways of expanding in Europe. We have about 200 manufacturing companies currently actively using the network via one of those 10 service providers. But we expect to grow very significant in the upcoming years, up to a few thousand manufacturing companies in the next 2 to 3 years. And this will also, the focus will also change from a Dutch to a Europe focus. So these examples contain some larger companies which are connected, but of course we also have a lot of SMEs connected to this network. So, and finally, I want to close also with this business model overview slide containing a summary of basically the presentation. I'm also very interested to see how we can collaborate with other launching coalition partners and with other parties interested in IDS. And there are some suggestions on these slides. Some might be technical. For example, we are now hosting all our own components. Maybe it might be beneficial to team up with someone who is already offering such components, like Darja Telekom. Or maybe it's interesting to team up with other supply chain initiatives in other countries of Europe, so we can better align it. So this is, for me, the last slide. If there are any questions, just let us know via the chat or via by the questions pane. And then I would like to thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you, Karsten and Mike, for your presentations. I don't see any raised hands or questions. So of course, I have a slide prepared for the next 8 minutes, which has the headline of discussion and how you two could work together, or your use cases could work together to inspire other members of the Launching Coalition and other use cases to integrate IDS. So I would like to welcome you on stage for this.
And this is Karsten. What we can see here at first is that TNO and we are on our way in the same market segment, industrial segment. It's about manufacturing and supply chain logistics. On the other hand, for example, we have some customers looking for data out of supply chains, want to apply algorithms on it to calculate supply chain risks in advance, for example. So approaches, and their problem is they have a lack of data. So this would be a immediately possible contact to from our world to the TNO world, and then we can check out if because we are both members of the Launching Coalition, we can make a, how to say, an interface or a data flow between our worlds on it. These are ideas coming up if we have a common, deeper insight, as we both of us now did it in our use cases. And our assumption is that might be true for more than 2 members of the Launching Coalition.
Yes, so I also put Matthij's name on the slide because you also had some interesting insights to offer here. Maybe you would like to add something. I see you have put a question. So Matthijs, you are very welcome to offer your opinion and some insights.
I was still on mute, good morning. Yes, I think this, I'm also from TNO, by the way, working with Mike on the topic of smart connected supply network. But this indeed could really be a very good road to take. What we're currently seeing is that SCSN is now used to support, let's say, the basic purchase to pay process, so exchanging all the information needed to deliver a product. But increasingly, we also see manufacturing companies building new use cases on top of this. So for instance, if you do this, then maybe you would like to use this to do supply chain risk management, or to come up with new approaches for the financing of your supply chain, or for new ways of collaborating in the supply chain on designs or on the maintenance of the products which have been developed. I think if you do that, or if you want to do that, you need to have a broader data marketplace and data ecosystem in place. You need new kinds of apps and tools building on top of the existing data sharing environment. I think this could really be a spot where, well, we together with Telekom could collaborate, and also others could work on. It is actually something we're now seeing happening in real life in also some of the European projects which we are involved in, such as the Market 4.0 project, which is building a manufacturing marketplace, which is also based on SCSN. So it takes SCSN and it goes beyond what is currently happening there. So yes, this is really an opportunity, and this is actually also why we participate in IDS to do this. So that's from my side.
Thank you, Matthijs. Tuomo, you also raised a question here. Would you like to share it with the group?
Okay, I try to be unmuted. Thank you for very great presentations. I was just thinking with this Karsten's slide about this having these 3 levels, and there was this IDS was one and workspace was one level, and eventually data analysis. So do you see that the business is coming out of the IDS infrastructure more, or eventually from data analysis? So the question is that which one will be a focus eventually for the business?
This is a good question, and unfortunately, I have not a good answer on it. So business arises at the moment from every side of the data environment. A lot is driven by, of course, by AI and the requirements for algorithms. But most people learn they cannot start there. Data availability is needed before. So you need to have enough data to do and to develop good algorithms. And then they ask, okay, where can I get the data? And then you come to the discussion of data exchange and who will share data and who will not. And then if most of the needed data, they say, okay, sorry, I have the data, but I don't trust you. I don't trust what happens to the data if I give them away. So if you then you come back to these trusted environments. So it started mostly, from my perspective, not on data. I want to have data sovereignty, but it started on other in the data on data requirements and of course AI requirements, and then the data sovereignty, the trusted environment, becomes a kind of precondition to share or to how to say to allow the people themselves to share this data. For example, yesterday I had a call in the environment of health, not about technology, sensor data. It was not about people and patients and all this stuff, but it was about some machines you are using in a hospital, and the sensor data. The responsible people say, okay, they needed a completely trusted environment. Well, and they called us because of this trusted story we had there, and say, okay, we need a well-trusted partner with a well-trusted technology-based environment. So there are some, how to say, direct calls on trust and data sovereignty, but most are a kind of steps coming down to the center problem. Sorry, a long answer for a good question.
Okay, thanks for this closing remark, because now it's already 1 minute past 12, and I would like to close this session. If you would like to get in contact, you have all our details. Get back to us, Karsten, and I will continue to create matchmaking opportunities for the launching coalition use cases. For the foreseeable future, we will not be able to see each other, which makes it a bit harder, but we are doing our very best that we can. And once summer break is over, we will really get started there and invite all of you to join us. So thanks for taking your time today. If you did not catch everything, the presentations will be on our YouTube channel as well. So check it out there. Have a wonderful day and hope to talk to you soon.
Stay collaborative. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Bye.